Have you ever found yourself slipping away from your sobriety goals as time goes on? Maybe life gets hectic, emotions bubble up, or those little habits you want so badly to break start feeling overwhelming. Relapse doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow burn that starts long before you ever have a drink in your hand. And today we're focusing on recognizing the signs of relapse and what not to do if you want to keep thriving in your sober journey. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Addiction Unlimited podcast, where you get to learn everything you want to know about addiction and recovery. I'm your host, Angela Pugh, co-founder of Kansas City Recovery, life coach, and recovering alcoholic. To learn more about me, you can listen to episode 0 on your podcast app or find us on the web at addictionunlimited.com. Hello, my friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. I'm your coach, Angela Pugh. Thank you for spending some time with me today and listening to the pod. I'm so excited that not only are we in my favorite time of year, I love winter, I love the holiday season, but it's also exciting that we're closing down another year, wrapping up 2024 and sending it off and starting a brand new year, fresh start, fresh goals, fresh attitude. And I'll be doing my Dry January boot camp like I do every year, so you have that to look forward to also. It's free and amazing, and this year I'm making some pretty exciting changes to our boot camp, so stay tuned for that. And no matter what time of year it is, we always need to be talking about relapse and warning signs and relapse prevention because unfortunately, it's always preying on us, looking for a little tiny crack in the foundation. And relapse doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a gradual process. It's subtle changes that go unnoticed until it's too late. And recognizing these early signs is crucial to staying on track with your sobriety. In this episode, we're diving into the stages of relapse from emotional and mental triggers to the behaviors that can lead you back to drinking and some pretty big what not to do's. Regardless of your length of sobriety, this is a conversation to empower you to recognize the early signs of relapse so you can stay strong and make your well-being a priority. Let's start with what is a relapse, right? A relapse isn't just the act of drinking. It starts with subtle shifts in your mindset, your habits, your emotions. Early on, we're super motivated. You're totally on top of your game. You're doing all the things. You're engaging in the Facebook groups. You're journaling. You're being connected. You're resolute in your decision that you're not drinking. But slowly, that starts to change. You skip a day of your morning reading or engaging in your Facebook group. You get too busy and can't engage in your new routines. Then you start to feel stressed and overwhelmed because life is stressful and overwhelming. You start to doubt your decision or you start doubting your ability to stick with it. You start to wonder what you're doing or you start realizing that you have no idea what the hell you're doing and you don't even know what to do next, right? All of these things are a part of relapse. And we typically talk about relapse in the way like it's just drinking or using whatever your thing is. But it's not. Relapse starts so much earlier than that, and we can stop it so much earlier than that. So there are 3 stages of relapse. I've done a whole episode about the 3 stages of relapse. I've probably done a few. I'll link that in the show notes so you can go and listen to that one next if you want to check it out. But the first one we're going to talk about are emotional signs, right? And this is like the super early stages of relapse. And at this point, you're not even thinking about drinking yet, right? These aren't drinking thoughts. This is even before that. This is the increased stress and anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like You're unable to cope with your everyday life stressors, right? You're having a hard time managing emotions without drinking because we use drinking to manage our emotions. So you start feeling like just managing the emotions is challenging. It's irritability and mood swings, snapping at your loved ones, feeling overly emotional, or having a sense of restlessness and just being uneasy. It's isolating, right? Avoiding your friends and family, avoiding your support groups, spending more time by yourself, withdrawing from social activities. It's neglecting self care, right? Not eating right, not sleeping well, not showering. And I want to pause here on sleep too, because sleep is so important for your body and brain. And I've never been a good sleeper. I've been really working on my sleep routine to improve this. And I'm actually getting ready to try some new sheets that are supposed to be amazing at regulating body temperature and some other things. So I'll keep you posted on that too. But sleep is hugely important and it's a major part of self care. And I feel like it's something we don't think about enough. I'm certainly guilty of that. And that's why I've been so focused on my sleep routine lately. But when you start abandoning your routines and your self care, all the things that previously supported your sobriety, like that's a huge red flag. I cannot tell you how many times I ignored signs that my emotions were bubbling over. Like they were getting to be too much. And I will ignore it because we want to push through. We're going to power through. I'm going to power through the stress and power through the overwhelm instead of just dealing with it appropriately. Right. And that's what leads you to a breaking point. And that's what not to do. Do not ignore the emotional signs of relapse. Emotions are powerful triggers and they don't disappear just because you bury them, right? Or escape them or numb them or drown them in alcohol. They're not going to disappear. What they actually do is intensify. If you don't deal with them, they intensify, which really is your biggest fear. So you got to get good at dealing with them, right? And what that means is maybe you set aside 10 minutes a day just to decompress, deal with your feelings, understand what you're feeling, refuel yourself, right? Maybe that's journaling. Maybe it's a little meditation. Maybe it's deep belly breathing. Those are all my favorite things. Maybe it's grounding. Maybe it's just sitting quietly. Maybe it's just closing your eyes for a few minutes and taking some deep breaths. Whatever it is, you have to do things daily. And if you're dealing with recurring emotions, things that are coming up for you all the time, like anger, we've had a lot of talk recently about anger in my Facebook group. If you have specific things that are recurring for you, then maybe you spend 10 minutes a day looking up those things. Why am I feeling angry? What are appropriate ways to deal with anger? What are the underlying issues under anger, right? Understand what you're feeling so you can get solutions and develop coping mechanisms. That's how you deal with your feelings. But you have to be doing it consistently, right? Then we have mental signs. And this is when thoughts of drinking start to come up. And one of the biggest ones is romanticizing alcohol, right? Thinking about all the good times you had when you drank and not really thinking equally about the negative consequences, right? We just want to romanticize the greatness of it and how amazing it was, or fantasizing about having just one drink or believing you can control it this time. Also, justifying. This gets crazy. I mean, listen, I can justify and rationalize all kinds of stuff. But when you start justifying drinking, rationalizing reasons to drink, like, oh, I've been doing so well, I deserve it, or one drink won't hurt, right? Those are all justification and rationalization, or downplaying how serious past consequences have been, right? We can downplay that. So be like, oh, well, I did this, but I never did that. You downplay. That's rationalization and justification. Huge red flag. It might be obsessing about drinking, fixating on alcohol, or thinking about opportunities to drink, or feeling resentful about sobriety or viewing it as a burden or feeling sorry for yourself. Like, why do I have this thing? Why did this happen to me? All of those things are mental signs of relapse, right? This is one step closer to a drink. And again, do not ignore these thoughts. This is a step getting you closer to drinking. And if you don't do anything to counteract these thoughts and get support, what you're doing is taking a step closer to a drink willingly. Willingness is the key to all of this, by the way. You have to be willing to do things, willing to take action, to follow through even when it's hard, to talk to people so you can get relief. You have to be willing to make it a priority, willing to be uncomfortable. If you aren't willing to take simple actions to protect your sobriety, then you're still committed to drinking. And if your commitment is still to drinking rather than to sobriety, then obviously you're going to drink again. There's your guide what not to do. Don't ignore it and not take any action to get your thinking right and support your future. You're either committed to your future or committed to your past. And there are some behaviors that make it pretty obvious when you're shifting toward relapse. Skipping your support meetings, missing recovery meetings, or avoiding your accountability partners. We all have accountability partners. You probably don't call them that, right? They're your treatment friends or your friends in your TLC group or your Sober Sis group or your Addiction Unlimited group. They're the people that you break off and have your own little group chat text together and you check in and check on each other and support each other. Those are accountability people. When you start missing meetings and avoiding your accountability people, disconnecting from your recovery community, whatever and wherever that is, huge red flag. That's a shift toward relapse. If you start revisiting old habits, spending time with people or in places that are associated with drinking, that's a red flag. Testing boundaries. I just saw this on Facebook literally yesterday. This dude posted, some random dude, I don't know who he was, posted on Facebook, went to a bar as a test, stayed 4 hours, drank soda and played pool. And he's saying it like almost like he's bragging, like he was proud of himself. All it's doing is it's putting you in a weird mindset that isn't supportive of your recovery at all. And it's sucking up a whole bunch of your energy that really needs to go to more important things than feeding your ego. Don't test your boundaries because you don't have any, right? If you are really early in recovery, you don't have any. So don't push those limits. Don't go to bars or keep alcohol in the house. Just don't do those things. There's no reason for it. Now, last one, we have physical signs. Right? When the emotional and mental and behavioral signs are ignored, then you're physically relapsing, right? You've got a drink in your hand and you're drinking it. And this is when your cravings and urges are so strong. You have such a strong desire to drink, especially in high stress or triggering situations, but it's so strong that it feels like you're unable to resist it. And that's because you haven't been managing all of the things along the way. If you take a few minutes consistently to manage your thoughts and feelings and behaviors, then it never gets enormous. But if you ignore it and you just want to power through life and act like you're above it all, or like you don't need to do those things, or tell yourself you don't have time, then it's going to get enormous and you're not going to be able to resist it. So here's what not to do, right? Don't overload yourself, especially right now in holiday season. We're all going to overload ourselves to a point. And this is where it becomes ultra important that you're doing things to manage your feelings and stress to keep them from getting enormous. How often are you saying yes too much, thinking you can handle it all? But what happens is that leaves you overwhelmed, burned out, and usually resentful. And then you're even more tempted to escape it all or want to escape it all. Overcommitment leaves no time for self-care. It leaves no time for you to be managing your thoughts and feelings on a daily basis so they don't get huge. And stress and exhaustion and overwhelm and a lack of self-care, all of those things make alcohol seem like an easy solution. You see how you're setting yourself up for failure? We've got to get good at saying no and protecting our time. I have to schedule downtime to decompress. I have to have that time. And the main time for me is super early in the morning. I mean, I get up between 4 and 4:30 every day because I have an hour-long morning routine. And I don't always knock it out of the park every single day and do it perfectly. That's not what it's about either. But I promise you, I'm taking time throughout every day to manage my stress and emotions and get my head right, because my head can go wrong quick. And I promise you, trying to power through it all is not the solution. The best thing you can do is make it a habit of doing things on a daily basis to de-escalate your feelings, counteract unhealthy thoughts, and get relief so you don't end up with a drink in your hand because you've convinced yourself it's the only way to get relief. Again, what not to do. And relapse isn't a failure. It's a signal that something needs your attention. You hear me say this all the time. Relapse is feedback. Feelings are feedback. By understanding how relapse happens and avoiding the pitfalls, then you can stay in control and keep moving forward in your journey. So I always make sure to give myself breathing room in my day, a few minutes to sit and be quiet, listen to a 5-minute meditation, drink my water, journal in the morning, because without those moments to pause and reset, it's easy for overwhelm to build up and knock me off track. And when things are too tight, when I have overcommitted myself and overextended myself and things are so tight in my life, one little hiccup can set off a whole domino effect and leave you depleted, defeated, and feeling totally out of control. But when you give yourself a little space and manage your thoughts and feelings consistently, then you can approach your sobriety with confidence, right? And that's what we really want. We want to feel good and confident in this. So that's my quick episode for you today. Stay ahead of relapse. To recap, first, do not ignore your emotions. Set aside time each day to check in with yourself. Second, do not pull away from your support people and groups. Support is your ally in sobriety. And finally, don't overload your plate. Give yourself time and space to breathe and get relief from the daily thoughts, feelings, behaviors, stressors. These strategies aren't just about avoiding relapse. They're about building a life where you thrive in your sobriety every single day. That's what we're going for. Thriving, feeling good, feeling confident. And to help you manage all of this, I made you a resource to go with this episode and to go with this holiday season, your Sober Holiday Podcast playlist. It is more than 20 episodes, some of them from way back in the early days, episodes that you don't even have access to on your podcast app. And I put them all together to support you in your journey to stay sober during the holidays and in any social situations, really. The holiday season can be one of the most rewarding and most challenging times to stay sober, with social gatherings, family dynamics, and endless opportunities to drink. It's easy to get overwhelmed and feel tempted. But that's exactly why I put this podcast playlist together, because I want you to feel supported, empowered, and prepared to get through this holiday season and feel really good in your sobriety. So in the playlist, you'll find episodes about all the biggest hurdles we face, not only during the holiday season, but all the time. It has episodes for navigating cravings and triggers, managing social situations, or if you're just looking for inspiration to keep going. All the episodes are packed. Easy tools, real talk to help you stay strong and feel confident and keep your sober goals top of mind. You can get the playlist at addictionunlimited.com/playlist. Of course, I will link that in the show notes. It will also go out if you're on my email list. You'll get it in an email. It'll be on all my social medias, addictionunlimited.com/playlist. Thank you for spending your time with me today. And don't forget, you can always schedule a free call with me if you're curious about working with me. I'm happy to answer your questions and figure out a program that works for you. It's the perfect tool to help you stay focused on your journey, and I'm cheering you on every step of the way. Don't forget the playlist, addictionunlimited.com/playlist. Book a call with me, addictionunlimited.com/call. All of that will be linked in the show notes. I will also link to the 3 stages of relapse episode. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next week.
You've reached the end of another great episode of the Addiction Unlimited podcast. Candid and honest conversation about addiction and recovery. Be sure to visit us at addictionunlimited.com to join the conversation and access show notes and links to everything we talked about. Love this episode? Please take 30 seconds to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes to help us improve and give you the information you want. Thanks for listening. See you next week.